Late in the afternoon of that first day, Rodin had Colton brought to his office on the second floor, away from the sounds coming from the many rooms below. They discussed Colton's future. Such a spectrum of possibilities, yes? The doctor says, brightly. Colton can't keep his knee from bouncing. That's all right. He forces all his anxiety into that knee so that it doesn't show anywhere else. I have a shipment coming in next week, Rodin tells him. The wings of a wandering albatross, 3.5-meter wingspan, the largest in the world. They've been infused with human DNA to overcome cross-species tissue rejection. Colton just nods, keeping his jaw clamped tightly shut. Because if he doesn't, he might scream. The doctor takes his silence for thoughtfulness. You must be imagining what it would look like to fly, yes? Then the doctor glances down at Colton's lower half. Of course, human legs are far too heavy for flight, but legs were made for walking, so what need for them if you can fly? Colton tries to hold on to the first thing Rodin said. Next week. If this is to be his fate, it won't happen until next week. By then, maybe he can find that tunnel and be out of here. But perhaps we should think about highlighting those hazel eyes of yours. Eyes are lost in one's face, do you not think? But imagine them in the palms of your hands. How much more useful they would be. Are those my choices? Colton finally asks. Eyes in my hands or albatross wings? Rodin frowns. Do you have something better? Something you dream you could be? Something the human body cannot do in its natural, inferior form? Colton takes a deep breath. What possible variation of awful could he propose? Something that would keep most of him intact, but more important, something that would take a long, long time to prepare. He imagines the albatross wings, which leads him to think of a Pegasus, which leads him to think of centaur. He can't believe he's even considering it, much less saying it aloud. The doctor laughs. You reach for the stars, yes? Centaurus, the brightest constellation in the southern sky. Like me, you are enamored by the mythological. This I can respect. The doctor taps his chin thoughtfully. I've thought of this before, of course, but such an endeavor is fraught with complications. The spine must bend at a sharp angle, the central nervous system must be effectively fused, and the operation itself, risky. Very risky. He looks at Colton a moment more. Then he slaps the table. But if you're up for the challenge, then so am I. He rises, full of excitement, and Colton begins to laugh. He finds none of this funny, and yet still he laughs, and doesn't know why. The doctor takes his laughter as a sign of some sort of connection. We shall find a horse of the proper size. Chestnut, I think, to match your hair. It'll take several weeks to infuse human DNA. Several weeks. That was the reprieve Colton was hoping for. Colton is ready to congratulate himself on his own cleverness until Rodin says, but first, we must give you a larger heart. I'll make that this week's priority. What? You can't expect a mere human heart to pump all the way to your hindquarters. No, but won't you need time to infuse it with human DNA too? Usually, yes, but I happen to have the heart of a bull already prepared. I had plans to make a pair of minotaurs to stand on either side of the palace entrance. But that can wait. This is so much more exciting. Rodin claps his hands in delight. What a wonder we will create. Dizzy now, Colton holds on tightly to his chair, praying he can get off this ride before its terrible conclusion. 4. Kunal. The bed this boy has made for himself is worse than any the doctor could have devised. Kunal thinks his mind must be broken, like that poor Russian girl. Or maybe he truly does fancy himself as the makings of mythology. The first procedure, the heart transplant, is scheduled for Friday, just 3 days after his arrival at the Green Manor. The boy's heart will be sold on the black market, and in its place will be a beef heart more than twice its size. Kunal is there as the doctor has his second conversation with the boy, the preoperative discussion. Of course, we'll have to enlarge your chest a bit, Rodin casually tells him, but that's simple enough. Kunal watches Colton, but he shows no hint of a reaction. How could he not be terrified? Kunal was terrified when he was the focus of the doctor's attention, but then Kunal didn't volunteer. He was selected. Perhaps that's why this American boy is treated differently from the others. You will lock him in his room at night, but allow him to move about the manor during the day, Rodin instructs Kunal. But keep a close eye on him. Escort him wherever he goes. Why, Dr. Rodin? Kunal dares to ask. Why he get no chains? The doctor looks at him, affronted. You question me? Only to understand. Rodin sighs. This boy will most certainly die. If not after this procedure, then after the next. Progress cannot be made without the experiments that fail, no? But I admire this boy's bravery. The least I could do is allow him his humanity for a day or two. Kunal does not like the idea that he is now the valet to some spoiled American kid, but knows that he is not. He's in for soften. What he's in for softens Kunal's judgment just a bit. The next morning, Kunal gives Colton the grand tour of the Green Manor, or at least the places that Kunal is allowed to go. The library full of mildewing books, the shrine, for before men resided in this place, the gods did, and the veranda, which looks out over an electrified fence to the jungle, and Thailand in the east, its border barely a kilometer away, so tantalizingly close. There are, of course, guards all over, and although they grip their weapons tighter than when they see Colton, they know that he is not to be touched, not until he's touched by the doctor's scalpel. Kunal makes the mistake of bringing Colton near the north wing, and the sounds make Colton stop in his tracks. They are different from the sounds in the front sections of the manor. Those are merely sounds of the aftermath, ruined beings scrabbling and babbling, trying to comprehend their funhouse existence. But in the north wing, these are the sounds of the souls in transition, the hollow howls of purgatory. In spite of Kunal's attempts to direct Colton away from the north wing, the boy moves toward a heavily bolted double door, beyond which they can hear muffled moans and weakened wails. Rodin's own gates of hell. Recovery room, Kunal reluctantly tells Colton. Some live, some die, some worse than die. You no want here. You be here soon enough. Kunal grabs his arm to pull him away, but Colton shakes him off. Shh. Kunal looks around to make sure there are no guards observing them, for the doctor does not like Kunal to linger by the north wing. Then they hear within the chorus of groans a single voice begging for help. English, Australian accent. Your friend, Kunal says. He survived, so far. What did Rodin do to him? Don't know yet. We'll know when he gets out. It's as they are walking away from the recovery room that Kunal catches something in Colton's eyes. Something more than an acquiescence to Rodin's experimental plans. Something rebellious, perhaps. Kunal thinks, there is more to this American boy after all. 5. Colton. All of Colton's hope now lies in a tunnel that may not exist. The tree in the center of the grand courtyard remains the center of Colton's attention. He circles around it again and again, trying not to look suspicious. The roots are as heavy and as gnarled as the limbs. If there were ever a well here, it had been destroyed by the tree's relentless growth. You want climb? Kunal asked him. Better to climb now. Won't be able to later. Either you dead or you a horse. Climb now, I show you. Only thing about Kunal, he doesn't mince what few English words he knows. Colton looks up at the tree and shakes his head. Rodin won't be too happy with you if I break my neck. I help, Kunal says. Come. It seems Kunal's only joy is his newfound ability to climb this tree, and Colton thinks how amazing it is that humans can adapt to whatever is thrown at them. If Colton survived, will he be able to adapt? He's not ready to imagine what life for him might be like if his unthinkable operation is successful. As they approach the tree, Colton sees a small hole between two large rocks, no larger than a fist. Colton kneels down to inspect it. Bad there, Kunal says. Pythons. I thought Burmese pythons lived in trees, not under them. Kunal shrugs. Rats then. Big, many big things in Burma. Still, Colton kicks at the hole, and some dirt falls in, making the hole a little bit bigger. He smiles and looks up at Kunal, who has already begun to climb, and joins him in the lowest branches of the tree. Immediately, a guard comes over to shout him down, because while Kunal is allowed to climb, Colton is not, but that's all right. Colton climbs down, salutes the guard, and heads back to his room, knowing all he needs to know. Colton realizes if he's going to escape, he needs someone with access, an inside accomplice. So that night, when Kunal brings dinner, Colton risks it all. Kunal, what if I told you that there's a way you can escape from this place? Kunal only laughs. I say you crazy. That hole beneath the tree is more than a rat hole. It's a tunnel. I'm pretty sure it leads out into the jungle. Maybe even over the border into Thailand. That gives Kunal pause for thought. Do you want to leave here, Kunal? Think about it. Kunal's eyes begin to moisten. What for me out there? Whatever it is, it's better than what you have in here. You don't have to be the doctor's trained monkey. Kunal backs away angrily, and Colton knows that was the wrong thing to say. I bring you breakfast at 7. You no talk to me. I no talk to you. And he quickly leaves, his keychain jangling as he hobbles off. 6. Kunal. The American boy is crazy. This proves it. And yet Kunal can't get Colton's voice out of his mind. You don't have to be the doctor's trained monkey. That's all he is, isn't he? A pet? An animal that the doctor can teach to do tricks for his amusement? Climb trees. Speak English. That night, Kunal ices his aching ankles as he always does. But later, after all the night guards are asleep, he leaves his upstairs room. Stealthily, he creeps along the balcony that circles the courtyard to the spot where the tree's heavy branches come close to the building. Then he leaps into it, shimmying down in silence until he reaches the base. To the guards on patrol, the tree is a blind spot. Their attention is on the gates, the doors, the barriers that keep people in or out. Ignoring his fear of what might be down there, Kunal scrapes at the dirt around the hole between the roots, using all 4 hands until he creates an opening more than a foot wide. He can't see down into the darkness. He drops a stone in. It takes at least a second before he hears it strike bottom. Colton is right. This is more than just a hole. Quickly, he covers it with leaves and twigs. No one must know about this. The doctor has many secrets. Now Kunal has one too. In the morning, Santhi arrives with 3 AWOLs. Colton's 2 remaining roommates and a girl with tattoos, who Kunal has not seen before. Kunal hurries to the doctor's side, knowing it is the best place to be when something happens that's not on the schedule. Were he anywhere else and the doctor called for him, he'd take out his wrath on Kunal rather than just order him about. She wishes to see her sister, Santhi says with a wide grin. I thought it was time. The doctor scowls. Since when is it your job to think? Santhi takes the rebuke in a simmering silence. Kunal knows he despises the doctor, but this is the doctor's camp, and in the Daze, disrespect to a superior is punishable by death. Then the girl shouts, You bastards broke your bargain with me. Now I'm going to be unwound and my sister is still a prisoner. The least you can do is let me say goodbye. The doctor ignores her. And what about these other 2? Santhi shrugs. They insist on coming with her. I told them if they come, they won't be coming back. So I guess you have 2 new volunteers. 7. Colton. Colton hears the commotion at the gate, and through his small bedroom window he sees Carissa and the others with Santhi, right on schedule. The doctor isn't pleased, and Kunal seems anxious, shifting his weight from one hand to the other. Colton leaves his room, which Kunal unlocked earlier today, and hurries over. So I guess you have 2 new volunteers, he hears Santhi say. I don't need volunteers today, the doctor says, and waves his hand dismissively. Take them out of here. Their insolence should be rewarded with unwinding. The guards grab all three of them, but just then, Kunal spots Colton approaching and meets his gaze. What Kunal does next changes everything. Colton watches as Kunal reaches down and jangles his keys ever so slightly, then gives Colton a nod. That nod says, "I'm on your side. I'll be your accomplice, your inside man." It occurs to Colton now, a single nod can alter the world. "Wait," says Colton. "You do need them, Dr. Rodin." All eyes turn to him. The other kids seem shocked to see him not in shackles. He steps over to Gamon. "Look at how slight this one is. You need someone small for your albatross wings, don't you?" And Chemo, he sits all day with palms turned heavenward. Put eyes in those palms, and then let him tell you what he sees. Stunned silence, even from the doctor. "And this one?" Colton glares at Carissa. "The AWOL catcher. You should let her see her sister. Then, add her inked arms. After all, she can be a close biological match, and it'll bring you one step closer to having your Callie." Carissa looks at them in building confusion. "My arms? What are you talking about? What is he talking about?" Then Santhi laughs long and loud. "It looks like you finally found a kindred spirit, Doctor. Too bad you must put him under the knife." Rodin looks at Colton with something bordering on awe or at least admiration. "Very well, then." He orders the guards to put Gamon and Chemo in a holding cell and sends Kunal to open Marisol's room. Santhi personally escorts Carissa to visit her sister. Colton doesn't go. He remains in the courtyard with the doctor. "You and I are of a like mind," Rodin tells him. "It gives me more incentive to make sure you survive your procedures." Then, from Marisol's cell, Colton hears Carissa's soul-searing wails of shock and grief, along with Santhi's endless laughter. 8. Kunal. The unexpected hope of freedom is enticing, yet terrifying. His life here is awful, but tolerable. What would his life be out there, in a world that would see him as a monster? He could live alone, a recluse at the edge of civilization, bothering no one, and no one bothering him. Is that the life he wants? These are questions he can't answer. All he knows is that freedom is desirable above all things. He cannot let his fear cloud his judgment. And so, well past midnight, he leaves his room once more, a plan fully formed in his head. A plan he might be able to pull off. 9. Colton. Colton paces his room in the dark. He can't sleep. He can't even sit for long. They will come for him at dawn to prep him for his operation. Soon his chest will be expanded, and the heart of the bull will be installed in place of his own, unless Kunal comes through. "You wait," Kunal told him when he locked Colton in his room that night after dinner. "You wait, I come." "And the others?" Kunal didn't answer. "You wait." The moon moves halfway across the sky before Kunal shows up at his door. His keys do not jingle. The lock turns slowly, quietly. Colton's heart seems to rise so that he can feel it beating in his neck. His heart. Colton is here. His heart. Which means he will keep his heart. If the tunnel truly is a tunnel, and if the guards don't kill him before he reaches it, he sees Kunal silhouetted as the doors open. Come. Kunal whispers, "No time." He gives Colton a handgun, and he doubts it's loaded with tranks. Colton has never held a weapon before, but he knows he'll use it if he has to. It's only as he steps out of his room that he sees the others. Chemo, Gamon, Carissa, and Marisol, her silhouette spider-like in the darkness. Kunal has armed them all. Colton would make a beeline for the tree if it weren't for one thing. Jensen isn't with them. "We have to get Jensen," Colton whispers. "No," says Kunal. "You leave now, he stay. Too late for him." But Colton knows he'll never be able to live with himself if he doesn't try. "Take them to the tunnel," he tells Kunal, then holds out his hand. "Give me the key." Kunal hesitates, but only for a moment. He finds the key on the key ring, but can't take it off. So he hands the entire key ring to Colton. "You stupid, very stupid." Then he leaves with the others. Alone, Colton creeps into the shadows to the double doors of the recovery room. Even at this time of night, it's not silent in there. There are still moans and the faint, hopeless wails of the damned. He waits for a guard to pass on his rounds. Then he goes to the door, unlocks it, and slips in. The first thing that hits him is the stench, both medicinal and septic at the same time. It's hard to keep from gagging. The lights are scarce and dim, and he's glad for it, for in each alcove is another one of Dr. Rodin's recovering experiments. And that's exactly what they are, experiments more than creations. Colton can almost hear the hypotheses the doctor was attempting to investigate. Can a brain be housed somewhere other than in a skull? Can a mythological Janus exist with two faces on the same cranium, forever facing in opposite directions? Can a giant be created by stacking spinal columns? And these were the ones that survived their procedures. Colton couldn't even imagine the miscreations that didn't. And then there's Jensen. "Who's there?" Colton hears him say. "I know you're there, but I can't hear you." Colton moves closer to the hospital bed on which Jensen lies, ankles and wrists secured to the frame of the bed, an intravenous tube feeding into his arm. "Don't pretend you're not there. I hear you. It's me, Jensen. It's Colton." At first, it seems as if nothing's been done to him, but as he turns his head in the direction of Colton's voice, Colton can see that Jensen no longer has eyes. Instead, he has a second set of ears where his eyes should be. "I know a way to make him listen," the doctor said. Colton shudders. "Help me, Colton. Get me out of here." Colton tries, but the keyholes on Jensen's shackles don't match any of the keys on Kunal's keychain. "Please, Colton, you've got to. I'm trying." And then from outside come shouts in Burmese and gunshots. He hears a girl scream. Is that Marisol? Carissa? More gunshots, and then a barrage of machine gun fire. Something's gone wrong. Colton takes a step back from Jensen to peer out of the door. "No, don't go," Jensen wails. Then, quieter, If you can't free me, then kill me. Please, Colton, I don't want to live like this." Colton understands. He wouldn't want to live like this either. He pulls the pistol from his waist and aims it at Jensen's scarred forehead. But he can't pull the trigger. He can't. He just can't. "I'm sorry, Jensen," Colton says. "I'm sorry." And he turns and runs, knowing that if he does live through this night, he'll never be able to forgive himself for his moment of weakness, for his failure to give Jensen what he truly wanted. 10. Kunal. Kunal blames it on the moon. Had it been a moonless night, they would have been under full cover of darkness. He should have waited a few more hours until after the moon set. But he was anxious, and it clouded his judgment. Now all was lost. All could be lost. He hears the shout of the first guard, which draws the attention of the second. He can't see them, but knows the direction the shouts are coming from. Marisol panics, running towards the tree, but she doesn't know where to go. She's heading towards the wrong side. Carissa goes after her. Then one of the guards fires. It hits Carissa, and she goes down in a scream of pain. But that doesn't stop her. She rolls over and begins firing the gun Kunal gave her in the direction of the guards. Then the small Thai boy, was his name Gamon, loses control. He has not said a word since he was brought here, but suddenly he runs out into the center of the courtyard, screaming a war cry at the top of his lungs. Kunal had taken whatever weapons he could carry when he raided his the armory. He hadn't given much thought to which weapons he handed to who. Gamon has a submachine gun, which he now fires wildly at anything that moves. And it's just the diversion that they need. The left side of the tree, Kunal tells Kimo. "Between the roots. Go now." Kimo runs, grabbing Marisol, while Carissa limps behind them. The guard's attention is on Gamon, who has already taken down at least 4. Lights come on upstairs, but not the big floodlights, which means there's still time, if they can just make it to the tree. 11. Colton. Colton races into the courtyard, not quite sure what he's seeing. Bodies litter the ground. He doesn't know whose they are. Then he's grabbed. He turns, ready to use his gun this time, but it's Kunal. Go now, Kunal tells him. Now, last chance. They run to the tree, taking the long way to keep under the overhang of the upstairs balcony, shielded from the moonlight. In the courtyard, whoever's screaming and firing the machine gun is taken down by a shot to the head. Was it Gamon? Down there, go! They're all at the roots of the tree. Something smells awful, all around them. A terrible stench. Smells like gasoline. Kunal pushes him, and Colton plunges down the hole that's barely large enough to fit him, breathing him from one world into another. Are you okay? It's chemo. Carissa's there, and Marisol. Carissa groans. She's been shot, but she's alive. Colton turns to the hole, expecting to see Kunal climbing down behind him, but he doesn't come. Kunal. He's already failed one friend today. He can't fail another. He climbs a pile of broken bricks back up towards the hole. Colton, shouts Chemo. What are you doing? The gunshots have stopped. Colton pokes his head out from between the roots. Kunal is nowhere, but someone sees him and is running towards him now. It's not Kunal. It's Santhi. And he raises his gun, and suddenly the whole world is engulfed in flames. 12. Kunal. The moment Colton slips into the hole, Kunal is grabbed from behind, pulled away from the tree, and thrown to the ground, pinned there by none other than the doctor himself. You evil, ungrateful little bastard. What have you done? There's a gun in Kunal's hand, but the doctor slams his hand against the ground until the gun falls free. He grapples, but the doctor pins both hands to the earth. I'll have Santhi unwind you alive, bit by bit, until there's nothing left of you. You forget something, Doctor, Kunal says. Then he smiles with a hand, and with a hand that used to be a foot, he plunges a knife deep into the doctor's neck. Rodin barely has time to register his surprise before he dies. With no time to lose now, Kunal pushes the doctor's body off him, and he looks towards the tree. Santhi has seen the hole and is running toward it, but he hasn't seen Kunal. The man's gun is raised, aiming at the hole. Kunal grabs his own gun and raises it too, but instead of aiming at Santhi, he aims at the base of the tree. Kunal fires the flare gun. It hits the large root, and the tree, which he drenched in gasoline about an hour earlier, bursts into flames. 13. Colton. He falls back down into the tunnel, his hair and eyebrows singed. What the hell? Chemo has just finished tying off the wound on Carissa's leg. The light from the flaming hole flickers around them, illuminating a tunnel that heads into absolute darkness. Do we know where it goes? Chemo ponders. Away from here, Marisol says, wrapping all fours of her arms around herself. I couldn't save them, Colton says, looking at the flaming hole in the tunnel roof. Not Jensen, not Gamon, not Kunal. No, agrees Chemo, but you saved us. Colton nods, knowing that it will have to be enough. He turns from the flames, which have now begun to spill down the walls like lava, and leads them through the tunnel into a darkness full of hope. 14. Santhi. The floodlights come on 2 minutes too late. They're not needed anymore because the tree blazes, lighting up the entire courtyard. In the morning, I want proof that they burned down there, Santhi yells with a fury that could shake mountains. I want to see their charred bodies. The trees ignited quickly, and he suspects an accelerant. Perhaps it was some sort of plan the AWOLs had when they went awry. If so, they'll be consumed in their own flames. He orders the men to get the fire hoses to douse the flaming tree. The AWOLs no longer matter. The top priority is putting out this goddamn fire before the whole place goes up in flames. That's when the talking monkey Kunal comes up to him, tugging his arms. Mr. Santhi, they kill the doctor. They steal keys and kill the doctor. Santhi grunts and looks over to where Kunal is pointing. There on the ground a dozen yards away lies the doctor with a knife protruding from his neck. What a mess the whole thing is. What a stinking mess. How could this have happened? Then he studies Kunal, whose eyes are wild and panicked. What should I do? What should I do? And Santhi laughs. In the midst of the miserable night, he laughs. Take acting lessons, he tells Kunal. Kunal just looks at him, confused. That's all right. Let him wonder. Santi is no idiot. He knows the AWOLs didn't kill the doctor. They had no reason to. Their only goal was to escape. He wouldn't be surprised if Kunal helped them, and then used their escape as the perfect cover for killing Rodin. He could blame the AWOLs, and no one would ever know the truth. Yes, the more he thinks about it, the more he realizes that's the real play here. That's exactly how it went down. Santi supposes he could turn Kunal in, punish him for it, but why? After all, he's done Santi a favor. He's managed to get rid of the doctor, leaving Santi in charge of the camp. If anything, he should be rewarded. What should I do, Mr. Santi? Kunal asks again. Draw me a bath, Santi says. Draw me a bath in the doctor's private suite. Then he thinks for a moment and adds, but first, draw one for yourself. Kunal gives him that same confused look. Didn't you hear me? You stink. Go take a bath in the doctor's quarters. As long as you'd like. That's an order. Yes, Mr. Santi. Kunal hobbles off in that weird way he has, but there seems to be a spring in his step that wasn't there before. And that makes Santi laugh and laugh and laugh. 15. Colton. 6 weeks later, he sits at the same restaurant where he met Carissa, eating Penang curry and reading a newspaper in Thai. He's picking up the language faster than he thought possible. He can read the headline. It says, Parts Pirate Ring Discovered in Police Force. The face of the police chief who first turned him over to the Daze is right beneath the headline, looking far less smug and condescending than when he spoke to Colton. A tuk-tuk speeds by. It was weeks before Colton could bring himself to ride in one again, but even the driver who brought him to the gray building was arrested. They likely never even got a trial. With the way the Thai abhor unwinding, he won't be surprised if they just disappeared. Kimo disappeared in his own way as well. After their escape, he's in Laos now, at a monastery in Luang Prabang. Colton has no idea what happened to Carissa and her sister after they stumbled out of the forest and rediscovered civilization. They quickly went their own way. He assumes they're together, dealing with Marisol's very particular issues. Colton finds he's not even curious. All that matters to him is that they're alive and no longer his problem. The harvest camp is still there, just across the border, so are a half a dozen other Daze camps. He can't fight them directly, but he can battle their agents here in Bangkok. The Thai police force is more than happy to use him, the same way the Daze used Carissa. But rather than catching AWOLs, he's begun working undercover to expose parts pirates. It's dangerous work, but he's paid well, and it's rewarding in other ways. He knows that each parts pirate he cleans off the street means dozens of AWOLs saved. Those AWOLs will never know him, and never know what he's done for them. And that's all right. At least he's beginning to atone for the ones he couldn't save from the haunted mansion. He stirs the rice into his curry and takes a taste. The sun is setting. Pretty soon, the tourists will be out in full force to experience the Bangkok nightlife, and Colton will get to work. For a moment, but only for a moment, he pauses to think of the life he left behind, the comfort of his family, the grief and sense of betrayal when they unwound his brother. But it's as if that were another lifetime. Colton smiles. He's no longer the person he used to be. He's becoming something entirely different.